Greetings. It's been far too long since I've posted an update about this clock. The Wrebbit Peace Tower paper clock. I finally got to the point where I've got it running, obviously. And I've learned a lot about this clock. So let's go over some of the little details. If you're building your own, let's go over some little details about what I've learned that might help you out. And then go through some of the challenges that I still have to figure out. So I got the frame together, and that seems to be working pretty well. Got it hanging by a screw. And then I put these, I literally glued these pieces of wood to the wall because the clock, without all the other gears on it, all of the weight is going to the escape wheel, which causes the clock to physically jump and shift on the wall, which throws its alignment off and causes it to malfunction. So until I get the rest of the stuff on there, I'm going to use these little blocks that are glued to the wall to prevent the clock, the entire clock case, from swinging back and forth. Okay, the ratchet works pretty well. I'm happy with how that worked out. The winding pull string, pull the string as you lift the weight in order to wind it up. That works pretty well. The pendulum has 1 pound worth of coins in it. The weight is rated for 2 pounds, but I increased it a little bit, and I'll tell you why in a second. See up here, this escape mechanism is different than what I'm used to. I've never seen one quite like this before. Let me see if I can get a good image of how it works. Not really going to come, is it? Okay, I'll just do it like this. So there's a toothpick back here. That's the end of a toothpick. That's what it's catching on. And then I had a toothpick there, but I didn't feel like the hole was in the right place. So I drilled 3-4 small holes in a line and put a broken off push pin in there so that I could adjust the peg to get it just right. There's little blocks down here that it's getting caught on. Let's see if I can show you the block. There it is. See how the bottom of the arms of what I'll call the anchor stop on those blocks? There's one there and one there. Yeah, those blocks were not in the right place according to what the manual tells you to do. It just does not work. Doesn't work at all. So I moved them. Both of them swing from little axles up top. And then the pendulum rests up here. That's the end of the pendulum with the toothpick holding it in. Now that toothpick likes to shift because, again, too much power going only to the escape wheel. So it makes it jump a little bit. I've got some tiny little clothespins on there to keep it from jumping. There you can see the end of the axle rod holding the anchor in place. Uh-oh, it's actually coming out. I gotta fix that. That should not be coming out. I might have to glue that later on. I mean, it's working all right, but it should not be working its way out. Okay, they're both in there. All right, so minor problems. I had to move that pin. I had to move the stop blocks. What did I do? There we go. And then there's a little case on the back of the bottom of this arm that you're supposed to fill with sand to give it a little extra weight. As you can see, at the end of its swing, the anchor pops it out. Pop, pop. And that taps on the pendulum to give it a little bit of extra momentum on each swing, and that's what keeps it moving. Instead of sand, I used a nickel. That round object is a nickel glued to the back of it to give it enough weight. What is going on? What'd I do? It's working fine till I messed with it. Cuss me. I must have bumped it. Another thing I had to do on the pendulum is there was a little knob, paper knob on the back that you can slide to open a door to add more weight. I had to take that knob off because it was rubbing on the wall. It was just physically so close to the wall that it would rub. So I took that knob off, and that improved things. I've got everything, all this white stuff on there is lubricant, Teflon dry spray lubricant. And then, what else have I done to this cussing clock? It's quite loud. This isn't going to be a bedroom clock. It might not be a clock at all by the time I'm done with it, and I'll tell you why now. So the weight drops fast. Really fast. Alarmingly fast. So fast that you'd look away and it'd be halfway down its travel. I was like, what is going on? So I devised a way to speed it up. I put a small bead in the eye of the hook to prevent wear. And then instead of tying the hook to the string, I put the string through it and glued a small tab right here. Focus. There we go. I glued a small tab here with a hole in it and tied the string to that tab. And the purpose of that is I doubled the length of the string. Come on. I doubled the length of the string. That way, for every inch it would fall, it will only fall half an inch. But also because of that, it only gets half the force transferred through the gears. So I increased the weight a little bit. It's probably up to 2.5 to 3 pounds now. And we'll play with that later to get it just perfect. But here's the problem. You can see these marks on the wall where I timed it. Half an hour, it drops 7.5 inches. 7.5 inches in an hour. Man, ever since I played with that pin, it keeps stopping now. That's not good. In 7.5 inches, it is dropped in half an hour. And I did some math, and that means if I want this clock to be able to run for 24 hours, I would have to hang it 30 feet in the air. Which means that before I even made my double string modification, I would have had to hang it 60 feet in the air to get a full day out of this clock in between windings. That's not good enough. That means this clock wasn't intended to be like a permanent installation that just runs all the time. This is a party piece, which will run for 30 minutes at a time in between windings. It's not good enough. I'm not happy with that. I'm not going to put a lot of work into a clock that you can only run for half an hour. I want a clock that's going to run continuously. You know, a clock, not a timer. So, I've got a plan in my mind that I'm forming, and it's pretty crazy, but it might work. So I've got the old clock here, this James Rudolph clock, and I've got a lot of problems with the main gear. I need to totally rework it. Just make a whole new gear with a new tooth shape, and everything. But the escape wheel and mechanism up here actually works pretty well. Please focus. Thank you. The escape wheel and anchor works pretty well. You can see how it attaches to the pendulum there. And I was looking at this clock and thinking, you know what, I think I have room for that in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate this out of some fresh cardboard, that jagged tooth gear, and that escape mechanism, that anchor there. I'm going to recreate that and stick it in this clock. So instead of only getting, you get 1 revolution for 6 seconds here. With that one, you get a revolution per 30 seconds, which will slow down the clock tremendously. And I think I've got room for it all here, actually. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in a whole different escape mechanism that I'm going to have to design myself based on that in here. And when I do that, it's going to mess up the rate that all the face and hand gears move that are going to go in here. Are you kidding me? Fine, whatever. I promise it's been running all day until now. There's something wrong with that pin up there. I'm going to have to figure it out. Anyway, I will have to re-gear the train that goes to the hands to make sure that it, you know, keeps an accurate time and isn't 30 minutes fast every hour. But if I do that, I should be able to get a lot more time out of this clock. And then it won't be just a party piece. It'll be a permanent clock. And if I get it working, I will post the addendum to the plans on this video or another one. That way, if you're building this clock at home, you can use these pieces that I design instead of the ones that come with the book to make a clock that will actually run for more than 30 minutes. Yeah, what else? I feel like there was something else I needed to mention. I probably got about 100 to 150 hours in this clock right now. So it's definitely more difficult of a project than the medieval clock, but the medieval clock is harder to get a hold of because it's more popular. It's an actual working clock. Yeah, so that's Peace Tower clock update. I hope you found some of this information helpful, and thanks for exploring this thing with me.